This is a 19th century Victorian organ, and while it is the coolest piece of furniture that I've ever got to work on, it is also the biggest piece of that I've ever had to work on. This video is the longest I've ever made, and it is packed with problem after problem. The problem, yet another problem. The problem with the drawers, the problem with doing that. I have no idea, I just have no idea how. And the scariest part is that it belongs to a subscriber and it needs to be flawless. One day, I received a message from a subscriber who had been holding onto this really old church organ, one that I believe is from the 1800s. She explained that she wanted to save it from heading to the landfill and was looking for someone who could turn it into something that could last another few generations. And that person was not me, at least initially. Another craftsman had started working on this piece with the vision of turning it into a desk. But as you can see, the work was never completed. Because of poor health, they were unable to finish it and had to return it in this state. And so after taking a look at some photos, I decided to take it on because I thought, how hard could it be? And that's how I began working on the most difficult project of my career. The difficulty of any given project is ultimately a subjective thing because there's a lot of factors to consider. For example, one project may require a lot of advanced woodworking techniques, whereas another project might have a lot of design-related obstacles to overcome. And depending on the individual skill level, the answer can be different. But I think I figured out a very simple and universal way to determine the difficulty of a project. You compare the time spent thinking about the piece versus actually working on the piece. The part of this furniture work that I do that doesn't really get captured on video is the amount of time I just spend staring at the piece, trying to figure out what I'm gonna do with it, and just generally doubting my ability and feeling like an imposter for even having an audience. But the best way to break out of that is to just start working on one thing that I know I could be doing right now. Now that the piece doesn't have scoliosis anymore, I wanted to try attaching this door to see if it will still open up and down, because sometimes when you adjust the rigidity of a piece, it will make the functional pieces like doors and cabinets not function anymore. But the problem is, the part of the door that the lever arm attaches onto is completely snapped off, so yeah, I'm gonna have to repair that before I can try out the door. One of the biggest challenges of this project is figuring out which parts are originally part of the organ and what parts were added on by someone else. And I believe this part was added on by someone else as a support for that top that I just took off. For the longest time, I could not figure out where this piece is supposed to go, but I finally figured it out. I initially thought maybe it's supposed to go here, but the thing is, it doesn't fit here. So then it led me to this discovery. This top bar doesn't belong here. It attaches onto the bottom of this part, like this. And then it sits on the bottom like that. And now with this top part raised up a little bit, this piece sits just like that. I might be a genius. But now, yet another problem is this part is missing 2 rails here. So let's make some. I'm looking for a piece of wood that I can use to replicate this piece, and luckily one of the pieces that came with the organ is this plank. And I have no idea where this is supposed to go on the organ, and I'm convinced that it's not even from the organ. But it's kinda perfect for this purpose. This video is sponsored by Proton VPN. Whether you're trying to watch Netflix as if you were in a different country or just trying to practice better internet hygiene, Proton VPN has you covered. Let's say you live in the US, but you're trying to watch something on Netflix that's only available in Canada or the UK. With Proton VPN, all it takes is a few clicks for you to change your IP address so that it looks like you're browsing from wherever you want in the world. Now, having access to more shows and movies is the main reason I personally use a VPN, but another major benefit is that it gives you privacy online. Browsing the internet without a VPN means your internet provider, advertisers, and governments can see what you're doing. Proton VPN solves that by encrypting your traffic and hiding your IP address, making it much harder to track you online. It also includes a built-in feature called NetShield, which blocks ads and trackers. What makes Proton VPN really stand out is that with a subscription, you're not just getting a VPN, you're also getting access to their entire Proton ecosystem. That includes Proton Drive for encrypted file storage, Proton Pass for managing passwords, and Proton Mail, which is the email service that the main character uses in Mr. Robot. It is extremely easy to get started with Proton VPN. Download it on your phone, computer, or tablet, and you can start browsing with a peace of mind in just a couple clicks. Use the link protonvpn.com/modernmakeovers in the description to try it out with an exclusive 64% off and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Honestly, it feels so nice seeing the top come together like this because it finally feels like I'm making some progress. But now I have to address an issue that I've been avoiding this entire time because truthfully I just have no idea how I'm gonna do it. And that's that this curved piece here is missing. And it's actually a very crucial structural element, so I have to make another one. I just have no idea how. See how this hole for the drawer is very jagged on the edges? So I thought initially that somebody maybe just trimmed it to make the drawer fit a little better, but I'm realizing that this entire hole was just cut out with a jigsaw, meaning this organ didn't normally have drawers here, and it was just cut into place. With the drawer compartment finished, now I can work on the desktop that will go on top of that compartment. Now the old top is obviously not suitable to be used as a desk, so let's see what I got in the shed. Coincidentally, the width of this new table is the exact same width, without me cutting it, as the original top. So that saves me one cutting job. I cut out these 3 support braces and attached them to the bottom of the desk using some glue and screws. What this should do is prevent any future warping to make sure the desk stays perfectly level. It also allows me to install this desktop to the organ without screwing in from the top. What I want to do next is take this front trim that I took off the organ earlier and attach it to this structure so that it becomes one sturdy unit. Because the way the front trim was attached to the piece earlier was with these 2 screws, and that's not gonna do because it's located on prime real estate where people are gonna grab onto to move the organ around, and because it's a very heavy piece, that is not gonna stay on. I'm pretty happy with how this desk compartment turned out. And now I need to address the drawers. And the problem with the drawers is that because they don't have a stop, they just slide all the way in. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a new drawer front and attach it to the drawer so that the new front rests on this front trim. I just need to find a piece of wood that isn't too thick so that it doesn't protrude out too much. And then I'm just gonna give it the same edge profile as I did with this piece earlier. Obviously I can't use these drawers as it is with all these holes in this groove, and initially I thought about filling them with either epoxy or inlaying them with pieces of wood, but that's so much work, you know. I just decided to cut out this piece of plywood. Nice and easy and clean. To secure it down, I'm using these little strips of wood that I get as offcuts from when I cut things on the table saw. Okay, now I have to fix this door. The problem is that this hinge no longer has a strong foundation of wood for it to reliably screw into. So I would need to patch up this whole area with another piece of solid wood so that the screws have something to dig into. But the problem with doing that is that you would see the patchwork from the other side. There's just no way to avoid it. But then I had a thought. What's stopping me from turning this into the new back and moving the hinge over here? I mean, the door itself is mirrored, so flipping it wouldn't cause an issue. The only thing is that I would have to cut out a new recess for the hinge to go here, and then just do a patchwork here that doesn't involve a structural concern.
Double fluted for twice the fluting.
So, after taking things apart and looking around, it's becoming apparent that this entire bottom section is customized by someone else. Meaning the doors were not doors before. They just used a jigsaw, I believe, to cut down this line and turned it into a door. It means the shelf in there and this floor are also not part of the original organ. I used my table saw to cut a straight edge on this door, but for this side I'll have to just sand it until it's straight enough. I mean, it's not terrible as it is, so shouldn't be too much. This door has way too many damages. Like, look at this big chunk missing. The veneer is chipped in a bunch of places. So instead of trying to restore this, I'm just gonna re-veneer this door. But to do that, I need to fill in these void spaces first. To repair those damages on the door, I'm gonna use Bondo instead of wood epoxy this time. The reason I'm doing that is because it dries much faster than wood epoxy. And also, since I'm not gonna have to mask those repaired areas with stain, since I'm gonna be veneering over it anyway, the color of the Bondo isn't really an issue. I think for this middle section, it'd be better if I just cut out 3 new pieces of wood, because I don't think these pieces are really worth restoring. I'm approaching the staining process a little differently for this desktop. I believe the wood that I used here is maple, and since it's so much lighter in tone than the front trim that it's attached to, I can't just use the same oil-based stain for the entire thing and expect it to turn out the same color. So what I'm doing is, after taping off the front trim, I'm first using a water-based stain in dark oak to match the top's color as close as I can to the trim, and once that's fully dry, I will then go over the entire thing with the oil-based stain that I've been using. The reason I started with a water-based stain is because maple is a very hard wood, which means it doesn't soak and stain very well. A water-based stain does a better job than oil at penetrating into the wood, and it lets me create the dark starting point that I'm going for, even on a dense and bright wood like maple. And if you're wondering if it's okay to mix water and oil-based stains, it's okay as long as you let it fully dry between coats. I don't think the organ came with anything that's supposed to go in here. It looks to me like there's supposed to be a shelf that sits on these supports, but I don't have anything that came with the organ, so I'm just gonna cut out a new shelf that will also come out, I think, up to here. And that way it'll overlap slightly with the door so that it completely obstructs your view of the inside. I also have to do something about this piece here. I'm pretty sure there used to be a huge structure on top that this was a part of, but I can see that it's been cut off. I could try to build something out of my imagination and find a way to attach this up here, but I actually like the way it looks even without it. That being said, these carved out squares are way too cool to not use, and I know just where they should go. Initially my plan was to keep these sticks and also attach them to the back like this, but I think it's just too much. So now I'm just using them as spacers. And then this is the shelf that I cut out with a pine board that I bought from Home Depot.